how Afro get in front of my mother race. I ain't never been to Africa. I never been to Africa. Afro or Africa. Never been there. I'm not from Africa. I'm born and raised in Goose, Florida. I'm born in Goose, raised in Liberty City in the Poker Bean Project. Ain't never went to Africa. Ain't thinking about going there. And I heard it's a beautiful place. Yeah. And I know it's the motherland. Yes. But not my mother, not her mother, and not her mother's mother. That ain't their land. America, real true land is right here in the U.S. soils.
I'm not an African American. I'm an American. I was born on American soil.
Saying that we all come from Africa, that's the biggest damn lie. Indian, indigo, black, natives, we the real indigenous tribe. I'm the original man of America, due to the mitochondrial E. So that means every single last race in this world come from me. So if I created shoe, how the fuck you on my land first? Trying to claim my shit, man, I've been history. My people was done the worst. You not no native, please just be honest. You really a $5 Indian. Pay $5 to take my land. You know you a fraud. You not one of them. The government changed our name just so we don't get no reparations. Colored, black, Negro, African American is what they changed our name to. We is the Cherokee, we is the Iroquois, and the Apache. We is the Cheyenne, we the Calyphians, we the American Aboriginal Native man. Comment part 2. If y'all want me to go deeper, tired of people saying we African when we is the original people. That's why we do not know ourselves. We really think we started.
Many know about slavery, but few discuss paper genocide. We did not all come from Africa, and most of us have Aboriginal roots that were stripped away due to reclassification and miseducation. As a Native Black American and a member of the Muskogee Creek Nation, I understand the importance of tracing your lineage. If you want to learn how to trace your genealogy and apply for tribal citizenship, send an email to mike@keymediapro.com to schedule a consultation.
I am not a slave, I was born to slide, I am not afraid. Hop about the K, oh yeah, free to God, they went out of state. I'm a child of God, I do not belong to the United States. For Black History, tell Uncle Sam he can catch a fade. I went to hell, I mean school, graduated at the top of my class. Still never thought I was over my peers. We did that time together 12 years. Ain't that some movie? I think that it is. They won't control me, I'm really a member. I traveled that road, I came back with the jewels for 'em. When I pull up, they pee how the roof gone. We some dog killers, won't chew bones. Know we all spit 'em, we supreme. Somewhere I read a nigga had a dream.
You don't have to try to be something you're not. God, I can't stand this.
Trying to be something I'm not? Trying to be proud of my African heritage? If that's being something I'm not, then fine.
My grandmother was a full-blooded Iroquois. My grandfather was a black from a long line of journeymen who lived in Connecticut since the establishment of the colonies. My father was a Bajan who came to this country a cabin boy in a merchant marina.
I know all of that, Mama.
Then know this. I am alive because of the blood of a people who never scraped or begged or apologized for what they were. They asked only one thing of this world: to be allowed to be. I gave you my grandmother's name, a woman who bore 9 children and educated them all. Who held off 6 white men with a shotgun when they tried to drag one of her sons off to jail for not knowing his place. And you had to reach into an African dictionary to find a name that would make you proud.
Oh yeah, let's get this party started. Let me see some fists and feathers in the chat if you can hear me loud, crisp, and clear. Hit the like button on the way in, hit the Cash App or the PayPal if you support the mission. You know this is a crowd-funded operation after all. Shout out to everybody viewing this from the Mike TV channel. Shout out to everybody viewing this from the Native Black American channel. If you're watching on the Mike TV, go sub to the Native Black American channel, okay? The link is on the homepage of my Mike TV channel. It says Mike's new channel. There's a link to it. Go subscribe to it. If you're interested in this kind of Aboriginal content, that whole channel is dedicated to it 100%. A lot of gems being dropped over there. And speaking of gems, I've been tirelessly working over the last couple of days to get my official membership site launched. and it is now live. So, guys, go to nativeblackancestry.com if you would like to get exclusive videos. We've also got a membership group that meets the first Sunday of every month. I've got a book list here, a lot of historical resources, and we're also going to be starting a movie club here soon. So that, a lot of content that we can't watch and react to on YouTube for copyright purposes, well, you guys can access that directly through the site. I'm actually taking suggestions on the first movie that we're going to be reviewing in the movie club. There's great hits that I haven't even seen yet, like Glory with Denzel Washington, Rosewood with Ving Rhames. So, guys, there's so many benefits that I'm making available here on the nativeblackancestry.com channel. And of course, you are able to book your genealogy consultations through the site as well. Instead of sending me an email, you can take care of everything through the site. So make sure to check out nativeblackancestry.com and become a member for some exclusive benefits. Now, as far as what we're going to be getting into today, I really want to share some further history on the reclassification of melanated Aboriginals. It's very, very well documented, but I feel like my audience hasn't seen a lot of footage from the elders, whether a part of the tribes on the East Coast or the Midwest, who've actually lived through some of this racial reclassification. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get on content.
The Great Spirit is all things. He is in the air we breathe. The Great Spirit is our Father. But the earth is our mother. She nourishes us. That which we put into the ground, she returns to us. Wabanaki, Algonquin. Mother Earth that stands before you is an ancient land. The great glacier has long ago scraped the mountains of soil, made them round. Mother Earth gave the people who hunted its forests, fished its streams, and planted its fields sustenance. But the land did not belong to the people, for it was Mother Earth. And Mother Earth cannot be owned. The people were the caretaker, the steward for Mother Earth, seeking harmony for what they needed and what was good for their mother. And the people were called the Nipmuc, the freshwater people. The land before you was the land of the Nipmuc, the caretakers for Mother Earth. Even the river knew who protected it, for it was called the Nipmuc River. Hi, I'm Ray.
And shout out to Engine Radio. See, this is why I love my audience. Each one teach one. I don't even know which movie you're referring to, Engine Radio, so make sure to shoot me an email because we can definitely get that added to the movie club list. They say, what about the movie with Bill Cosby where the pale woman called him a drunken engine? Yeah, a lot of those movies, a lot of those spaghetti westerns from like the 70s, early 80s, they were very candid about calling people who were clearly black Indian for whatever reason. So, yeah, clever observation.
Ranger Chuck Arning with the National Park Service here in the Blackstone River Valley National Heritage Corridor. And it's true. The early maps indicate this body of water to be the Nipmuc River. Of course, we know it as the Blackstone River today, and we think it got its name from William Blackstone, who was the first English settler here in 1635. You see, we think that the traders who frequented Roger Williams' trading post in Providence in the late 1640s referred to the river as Mr. Blackstone's River. And of course, we know the story of the native peoples here, the Narragansett, the Wampanoags, the Nipmucs, the Niantics, the Piquas, and all the other native tribes. We know their story, don't we? Of course we do, because the history books tell us that when the English settlers came here, they brought with them epidemics, and there was a vicious, nasty war, and more epidemics, and wiped clean the landscape of the native peoples here. That's what the history books say. Matter of fact, in 1822,
come on, guys, before we get into what happened in 1822, this park ranger cooking. I'm going to let this man cook, too. I'm going to let this man cook. And let me know if you guys want me to leave the subtitles on or off. Guys, the Europeans want us to believe, oh yeah, no, we came over here and the Indians were nice, and Thanksgiving we ate, and then they all got sick and died and left this land empty, so it's ours now, from sea to shining sea. No. Those Indians resisted you removing them from their ancestral homeland and putting them in Holocaust camps, plantations, reservations, in more recent years, ghettos. And after they lost many armed conflicts, you made them prisoners of war and reclassified them, miseducated their youth, enslaved them, and then reclassified them to the point where modern day you're calling them African Americans. I mean, guys, it's really disgusting with the reclassification, y'all. It's really disgusting. And that's why one of the first things I wanted to make sure to highlight on my channel, since this is my crowning jewel, since this is my little baby I've been working on, one of the most important things I wanted to highlight straight off the jump is the reclassification efforts throughout the years. Again, Christopher Columbus, Spanish, European, real name Cristobal Colon, but you know they angelicize his name and call him Christopher Columbus. No, Spanish motherfucker Cristobal Colon calls us Indian in 1492. Then after Bacon's Rebellion, 1682, we get reclassified as Negro. Then in 1851, we get labeled as colored. And then a few short years after that, they come out with the NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, which was actually founded and funded by a whole bunch of white people who were descendants of abolitionists. That although they act like abolitionists are really, two wings of the same bird, and they was running some CIA, black ops, psyops to really maintain control over Native Black American culture and opinion. But that's for another discussion. But 1851, we become colored. We become black in the 60s. We take it, flip it, and say, God damn it, I'll say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. So they said, hold up. We got to call it Audible. We got to call them something else real soon. So 1988, by way of Jesse Jackson, we become African American. If you look at the reclassification efforts, it's kind of every 100 to 200 years, right? Like this is about 200 years, I think. This is about, about 100 or so years. This is about 100 or so years. But then once we made black something to be globally admired, once we made that something that was so beautiful, something revered, they said, hold up, wait a minute, call Audible. You guys are African Americans now. Come on. Let's get into it, y'all. Let's get into it.
Secretary of War received a report on Indian affairs that stated that the Indian communities in New England were just a few feeble remnants teetering on the brink of extinction. That's what the history books tell us. Well, my friends, I'm going to suggest to you that the history books are wrong. They don't tell us the story of the native peoples here. And it's a much larger story and one we need to know about. And I want you to focus on one concept. He who writes the history controls the history. So join me as we take a hard look at the written history and rediscover the people of the Dipmuk Nation.
That song, I was country before country was even cool. Well, I was Nipmuc before being Nipmuc was cool. And it definitely was not a cool thing.
As the Wampanoag medicine person, Slow Turtle used to express it, we were born to be anthropologists. We study white people all our lives. It's the only way to get along in this world.
If the Indians won, it was a massacre. If the colonists won, it was a battle. And I think that that needs to be brought out because we know it wasn't that way.
You're probably wondering why two rangers in National Park Service are sitting in the middle of the woods with books. We have to remember, we're readers of history. We're looking for new ideas, new concepts, new ways of understanding. And sometimes sitting out here with Mother Nature is the best way to come to those revelations. Now, I'm with my good friend and ranger colleague, Dan Maharg, And Dan has been doing some research here on the communities in the Blackstone Valley and how they treated or listed the natives, the Native Americans here. And Dan, what have you come up with?
Well, I got out of our park library 3 county histories, or 3 local histories. This is the history of Worcester County, written in 1879. This is history of Grafton, also written in the 19th century. And this is a 20th century history, history of Upton. And so I just looked in there for you, Chuck. I looked up Nipmuc people and wanted to see what they said. So this is Frederick Pierce's book from 1879, A History of Grafton. And in here he says that the Nipmuc people over the last 2 centuries have vanished. So totally disappeared.
Oh, yeah, guys, we just disappear. It's just the way it works. We just poof, gone. And I'm sorry, Engine Radio has a question. They say, what about the Asians? Seem to always be hush-hush on what they had to do with this. Are they the most recent colonizers? I wouldn't even just highlight Asians. I would say there's been many migrant populations that have been complicit with our paper genocide, whether it's Italians, whether it's Irish, whether it's Jewish, whether it's Asian, or even in more recent years, Mexican. Believe it or not, there's a lot of federal scams going on where people are faking Native American tribes. They're faking federal recognition and tribal citizenship to sell illegal migrants some kind of pipe dream of a shortcut to U.S. citizenship. I know that was a mouthful. I know that was a lot to take in, so I'll restate that. But you guys know how I'm a card-carrying member of the Muskogee Creek Nation, right? My tribe is federally recognized as a sovereign nation. I'm a sovereign citizen of that tribe, et cetera, right? Well, there's groups of migrants that are faking tribes and faking paperwork and faking IDs to give migrants a leg up. So I wouldn't even just say it's Asians, it's Mexicans, it's Italians, depending on what year in American history you want to look at. There's different groups that have been, complicit in acts like this. But let me go ahead and share with you some receipts, because I actually just came across a video the other day that was talking about this exactly. Watch this. I got it here somewhere.
Another suspect is set for trial next month. She's accused of working with a couple who took advantage of people who were in the country illegally.
The people she's accused of working with were sentenced after pleading guilty to fraud charges. Humberto Reveles was sentenced last year to 3 years in prison. Maria Isabel Lerma received 5 years probation. Both must pay restitution to their victims.
Channel 5 News has learned there is at least one other suspect accused in this fraudulent operation. Channel 5's Ana Aguiano reports at 10.
This case has ties dating back to 2014. Channel 5 News has stayed on top of it. Although the cases against 2 others in this operation have already been convicted, victims continue to come forward. Jose Guadalupe Gonzalez's dreams of coming out of the shadows to live freely with his family are shattered.
Cuando me di todo falso fue cuando me mandaron la carta esa.
Gonzalez is one of the nearly 200 who fell for the phony documents Humberto Reveles and Maria Lerma were selling.
Yo fui víctima de que me creí en ellos, que podía haber arreglado.
Wait a minute. They trying to make it seem like this illegal immigrant is the victim. I was a victim. I believed in them because I wanted to legalize my... Nigga, that's illegal. What the fuck are you talking about? You bought some fake paperwork to be a part of a fake Native American tribe so you can get a pathway to U.S. citizenship, and you're trying to say you're the victim? No, I think us true melanated aboriginals are the victims when you migrants, whether you're a migrant from the same continent of ours or not, when you migrants come over here and try to cosplay.
Pero no.
Reveles and Lerma fessed up to their crimes.
Para empezar, $1,000.
The 2 were duping people in the country illegally into buying fake Indian tribe memberships.
Estaba esperanzado todavía darles el dinero para que me dieran mis papeles, para yo poder trabajar bien y darles una vida buena a mis hijos.
The pair.
Oh, he just wanted to get his papers and work and give his children a better life. And the way that he thought to do that would be stepping on our heritage, stepping on our ancestry, stepping on our culture. Okay. All right.
Told their victims they would be allowed to live and work in the country if they purchased a membership to the Yamasee tribe. Evidence discovered during the Reveles investigation led to the identification of Querena Almeida Cedillo. A criminal complaint shows Almeida collected applications, processed them, and took in fees from victims, sending them to other so-called Yamasee tribe leaders.
No legitimate tribe does that.
Head chief of the Yamasee tribe says their tribe is a victim too. Francisco Stephen Tipton represents about 20 people.
And I've reacted to some footage of the chief of the Yamasee tribe, and that's a black man right there. So again, black Indians is the one who are being victimized here, not these Mexican illegals, descendants of conquistadors.
Who bought the fake papers. He says his clients, along with others out there, are owed more than the money they forked over.
And if they fall under as victims of extortion, then they qualify for U visas.
And yes, yes, that Yamasee tribe, yes. I started looking at the chief sideways. That's how fucked up this is. I started I'm pretty sure his name is Chief Sekou. I'm pretty sure it's Chief Sekou. Hold up. Yamasee Chief Sekou. I'm pretty sure it's Sekou, but I could be wrong. Here he is right here. Yeah, Chief Sekou Hacho. Yeah. Oh, and I'm sorry, you guys are not seeing my screen. Chief Sekou Hacho. Chief right here. I thought he was a good brother. I seen his content. He going to bat for. I thought everything was on the up and up. So when I seen a Yamasee tribal scam, and the only Yamasee tribe I know is this Chief Sekou here, I was like, yo, what is going on here? But no, this was some Mexicans doing some illegal shit and using the Yamasee name. It's just like how I'm a part of the Creek Nation. So imagine if some Mexicans were selling $1,000 citizenship packages to be a member of the Creek Nation. Well, then us Creek Indians would have to wear the brunt of some of that shame, some of that blame. We'd be like, wait a minute, they're playing with our name. So yeah, this is interesting to say the least. It's not just the Asians in Gen Radio, it's even the Mexicans modern day. It's even the Mexicans.
According to Frederick Pierce. But I was looking at a census that was done in 1992 that said that living in Worcester County now, there are 1,400 Nipmuc people. So I was a little surprised. Why does it say they vanished here? And yet nowadays we have 1,400.
That's even more amazing when you consider the town of Grafton has the Nipmuc Reservation there, the Haslamamisco.
Right.
And that is a centerpiece of Nipmuc culture and has been for decades, centuries.
Right.
So why would they say that those people no longer existed?
Well, that's a tough question because, like you said, Frederick Pierce obviously knew his neighbors and he knew the people.
Peep game, guys, peep game. At the same time, they want us to believe that all the Aboriginals just vanish. Poof. They're just gone, guys. What happened to the natives? They're well documented. Been here for thousands of years. Europeans in contact with them for hundreds of years. What happened? Oh, they just went missing. So at the same time, they want us to believe that the natives went missing. They want us to believe that a bunch of imaginary Africans came over here packed like sardines on a slave boat. False. Never happened. Did the transatlantic slave trade occur? Yes. Where did most of those slaves go? The Caribbean islands, South America, Brazil to be exact. Barely any at all came to the 13 colonies. But at the same time, we got all these Indians went missing. We got all these Africans that are supposed to poof. All these Africans are in America now. All of a sudden, from the other side of the world, we don't know how they got here.
People living at the reservation there. And why he decided to not call them Nipmuc people is really interesting. I think it has something to do with Frederick Pierce and other people's attitude at that time, in the 19th century, their attitude about what an Indian was. And for them, what an Indian was somebody who lived out in the forest, who lived maybe in a little teepee or a wetu someplace, who mainly lived by hunting or making baskets. And as he looked around at his neighbors at Haslamamisco, he saw them as barbers, stone workers, factory work.
That's right. So when us Black Americans get in touch with our Aboriginal roots, that takes many shapes. Guess what? Me personally, again, I'm a card-carrying member of a tribe, and I'm American Indian as it can get, right? Descendant of full-blooded Creek citizens, not freedmen or nothing like that. Shout out to the freedmen, though. Rich legacy. And even I don't feel the need to rock no headdresses or feathers or start going to the powwows and shit. I'll be the first one to tell you, I've been a member of my tribe since 2021. I've never visited the reservation. Never need to. Don't need to go to the reservation for my checks to cash. I get my checks from the tribe. They come on time. I don't even got to go there, visit y'all, commune with you, nothing. We interface with our indigeneity however we choose to. There's many benefits I've taken advantage of. I've definitely got my reparations owed by way of my ancestors through the Treaty of 1866. I also get certain privileges, housing, low-income loans, down payment assistance programs. If I'm applying for a federal contract, I get pushed to the front of the line because I'm an American Indian. If I'm trying to get employed by a federal agency, I get pushed to the front of the line because I'm an American Indian. There's real benefits. I'm no longer black. I am not designated as black. My birth certificate, my driver's license, it don't say black. It says American Indian. And there's real benefits to that. But at the same time, we have to realize that that don't mean that we got to start dressing like Tonto and trying to go to the TP and smoking a peace pipe with these fools. No. We choose to interface with our culture however we choose to. And Indians for centuries have represented themselves in numerous forms. They've taken on English names and different names and moved to cities and towns and become blacksmiths and skilled laborers and mechanics and all kinds of stuff. So it's very interesting that they're talking about the fact that back then they want to say, hey, if you're an Indian, you're someone living in the bushes and shit. But no, Indians were civilized to the degree of assimilating into dominant European culture and even living amongst them in their towns and thriving in their cities.
Indian was. And for them, what an Indian was somebody who lived out in the forest, who lived maybe in a little teepee or a wetu someplace, who mainly lived by hunting or making baskets. And as he looked around at his neighbors at Hassanamisco, he saw them as barbers, stone workers, factory workers, shoemakers. And he said, well, these people aren't living the way I think Indians live. So therefore, I'm not going to call them Indians. I'm just going to assume that they've vanished. And I think that's why in these local histories, you don't find descriptions of native people as they're living, as shoemakers. They're not being described as native and factory workers.
Because that would go against our romanticized view of the Indian.
Right, they're not living in the forest, so therefore they're not Indian, according to these folks.
It must be very difficult for people to overcome that kind of stereotype. The only way you can be an Indian or Indianness would be out in the woods, where how are you going to make a living and fit into society?
Right, so for Nipmuc people, this must have been particularly a difficult time to live, because here you have a bunch of people in the dominant culture, the white culture, let's say, saying, you've all vanished. You're no longer Nipmuc people. And you have Nipmuc people saying, well, I consider myself a Nipmuc person. I have a family heritage. I have a set of beliefs. And I have a community that I live with that, for me, is distinctly Nipmuc. The same time you have the white culture saying, no, you're shoemakers now. And more importantly, you're a person of color. You're no longer a Nipmuc person. And that shows through in these county histories and also in the census records at the time. You find a person described in the 1860 census as an Indian. In the 1870 census, they're described as a person of color or a colored person. Same person, but the census taker, as part of the white dominant society, decides that this person is no longer Nipmuc.
There was kind of an ethnic cleansing with a pen going on. And it was, if you did not have white skin, you were considered black. And a lot of times, I mean, even today, you go into the town halls and you see where people have actually written over the records. Where it was put in that they were Indian, and someone went in and wrote black over.
I really liked the information that I learned today, and it really opened up my mind. Before, I have to say that I was a little bit more closed-minded, and sadly, I didn't really understand a lot of the things about Native American history that my mom was also have been trying to tell me about the people in America. But this really opened my mind, and it also was really, really easy information to understand. Even though it was a lot of information, it was still very, very easy to understand. So I recommend, especially for the people with closed minds or the people who don't believe some things about ancestry and Native American history of Americans, many Americans in America, I really recommend that they give this a shot and look at this information, because I do believe that it's different and that you will learn a lot.
And you learn so much about history that they don't teach in schools. They're not actually Black, but they were Native Americans. But just because of how they looked, then they would reclassify them differently. Like first they were Native, and then they became mulatto, and then they were colored, and then they were Black, and then they were African first, then American. So it's like so many different classifications, and it sort of like keeps our true identity buried. But this, you learn how to put together your family tree. You are actually taught how to not just put together a family tree, but to connect your background with your Native heritage. And that's very important.
Yeah, and I don't need engine radio over here throwing salt in the game. Okay. Yeah, so that was quite an attractive young lady I consulted with. Okay. Mother and daughter consultation. And believe it or not, that's actually kind of becoming the norm. I'm having a lot of, father son, mother daughter, parent and child combinations sitting down during these, one-on-one genealogy meetings. And yeah, the $75 consultation, I mean, it's $75, but it's not like per person or anything. So you can have as many people as you want on the Zoom call. And, I even give you a recording of it if you want to, keep it as a note, share it with family members or friends. So yeah, you guys make sure to take advantage. But I wanted to highlight Foxy Moon. Foxy Moon said there are still Indian names, towns throughout the country. Yes, all throughout the country. Look at the county, look at the name of the rivers, look at the name of the towns, and it's either A, going to be named some kind of indigenous name, or B, named after some European settler or conqueror that, slayed the Indians so that the white folks can settle. It's one of the two. And actually, a lot of states are named after Indian names. Most people don't know. Kentucky. Kentucky is an Iroquois word, Kentaten, which means land of tomorrow. Mississippi is an Ojibwe word, Mississippi, which means great river or father of waters. Nebraska comes from the Oto word, which means flat water. Ohio is a Seneca Indian word, Ohio, which means beautiful river. Oklahoma was invented by an Indian chief, but still, it translates into Indian territory. It's basically where they forced us to during the Trail of Tears. A lot of Black folks walked the Trail of Tears to Oklahoma as well, and they became so successful thereafter. They became the stewards of Black Wall Street and other successful towns in Oklahoma. So rich history there in Oklahoma. Wisconsin was a French pronunciation of a Miami Indian word, meaning it lies red. Or some say it could be an Ojibwe word meaning redstone place. Wyoming is a Delaware Indian word from alternating mountains and valleys is what Wyoming means in the indigenous language. Illinois is named after the Illiwek, a tribe made out of about 12 smaller tribes that included the Kasakia, Porora, and Cahokia. Remember, Illinois, Cahokia Mounds, huge pyramids, Mississippi mound builders, look it up. Alabama comes from Alabamas or Alabamons, an Indian tribe of the Creek Confederacy. Alabama is also the ancestral homeland of my tribe, the Creek Nation. I'm born and raised in Sacramento, California. My folks before that came from Louisiana, came from Bakersfield, came from Oklahoma. Well, before that, where were they? Alabama, before the Trail of Tears. So yes, rich history, rich culture. We just got to do the digging. But yes, Alabama is a word that means we stay here or we clear a path through the forest. So guys, go ahead and look it up. We got so many signs of indigeneity all around us.
An ethnic cleansing with a pen going on. And it was, if you did not have white skin, you were considered Black. And a lot of times, I mean, even today, you go into the town halls and you see where people have actually written over the records where it was put in that they were Indian, and someone went in and wrote Black over it. And you can actually see in censuses from time to time where they may have been Indian in the first 3 censuses, and then the last 6 of their life, they're considered Black.
Yeah, guys, actually, on my new website, I shared a little bit of my own family history. Look, let me pull this up. This is very relevant when we talk about the reclassification of Black Indians throughout the years. If we scroll down a bit, this right here is my direct lineal ancestor, Thomas Jefferson Adams Hacho. He lived from 1848 to 1910. Thomas was a distinguished, full-blooded Creek citizen, successful attorney, and respected leader in early Oklahoma. Born into Creek Nation, Thomas was recognized as a town king for his leadership within his community and for his significant contributions to the legal and political systems of Indian Territory. A skilled attorney, he eventually became the Chief Justice of the Creek Nation Supreme Court, where he made lasting contributions to the judicial landscape of the tribe. As a member of the Creek Nation, Thomas was deeply involved in the affairs of his people, serving as a key figure in both legal and community matters. His success in the legal field, coupled with his respected position within the tribe, established him as one of the most influential Creek citizens of his time. His legacy is further explored in the book Black, White, and Indian: Race and the Unmaking of an American Family. Now, this is where we get to the meat and potatoes, guys, the meat and potatoes. And guys, I'm a full-time genealogist, and I really didn't even discover this about my ancestors until like 2 weeks ago. I finally found a picture of Thomas. I looked at this photo. I said, wait a minute, he looked black. I mean, clearly he got some straight hair going on and stuff, but he's clearly a melanated man. And when I did the research, not only is he a Black Indian, but he's a full-blooded Creek citizen. But not only that, but he's recognized as a town king. But not only is he a town king, but at one point in time, he was a Chief Justice of the Creek Nation Supreme Court. Like, what? Not only that, I found by way of his birthstone site, he was a Freemason. Yeah, go ahead and cue up the X-Files themes. I got Black Indian Freemasons on my dad's side of the family, and I got European Freemasons on my mama's side of the family. Shit get deep, don't it? But guys, this goes into the it goes to show the racial reclassification of the time, because this book that he and other family members of mine are mentioned in, Black, White, and Indian: Race and the Unmaking of an American Family, it talks about the racial reclassification and how certain Indians will pass for white or pass for black. But check this out, guys. Interestingly, while Thomas was listed as a full-blooded Indian on the Dawes Roll, the official census that documented the citizens of the 5 civilized tribes, later, the U.S. Census records categorized them as Negro. Yes, guys, I found him on the Dawes Roll listed as 100% Creek by blood, right? 100% Creek by blood he's listed at, but then I found him 5 years later listed on a U.S. Census as Negro. Look at the reclassification. This shift in racial classification highlights the complex and often contradictory racial dynamics of the time, particularly the reclassification of Native individuals that had darker skin. It underscores the broader history of racial categorization and the challenges faced by Native Black Americans in a system that frequently erased or marginalized their indigenous identities in favor of racial distinctions. Thomas's story is a poignant reminder of the resilience and adaptability of Native peoples in the face of racial reclassification, and his legacy continues to live in his descendants, particularly through Michael Lane Jr.'s work in genealogical research and advocacy for Native Black American heritage. So yes, direct ancestor of mine, rich history, and when I teach folks how to do their own family genealogy, we find that we got crazy stories like this in all of our families. Do you know how many World War II draft cards I done found in Black American families? Do you know how many of our ancestors was doctors, lawyers, politicians, blacksmith, tradesmen, war generals, war heroes, going back to the establishment of the 13 colonies? I mean, this right here is some shit that you can write a movie about. And the crazy thing is, history like this is within the average Black American family, because we've come from a culture of greatness, of pride, of respectability, of overcoming adversity. So yeah, it all starts with doing the genealogy.
But you also notice something else on those censuses, that they were together here and they're still together here. It hasn't mattered what people have decided to do, you know, how they wanted to do what they wanted to do. We've stuck together.
Beneath the myth of disappearance that is in all of these published books from the early 1800s on, beneath that is the fact of the Indian presence. And the very same books that will say, the Indians disappeared, will then proceed to tell you all about the Indians that they know that are part of their communities. And what is abundantly clear through the secondary sources and through the overseers' records, the Indian overseers' records, is that the Indians never disappeared. They're always here. The Nipmuc presence and persistence is real, in fact, the reality. Over in Grafton, where the Hassanamisko Reservation is, which I should backtrack, after King Philip's War, only 2 Nipmuc homelands were recognized as sanctioned settlements.
Did you hear that? After King Philip's War, look up King Philip's War if you haven't heard of it. Really, really important piece of Native Black American history there. But after we lose some wars, after we lose a battle, we get reclassified. We become victims of paper genocide. We're not recognized. We don't exist because the victor writes his story. Let's talk about it. But you know what? There's another one that I want to share. This one, I forget which tribe this is. I want to say the Narragansett, but I'm not sure. But either way, we're going to be able to hear from some Black Indian elders.
Walk back and forth. So it's an amalgamation not only between free people of color and native people. There was an amalgamation also between colonials. I mean, that happened. Matter of fact, that was one of the things that William Byrd, who was involved in the dividing line between Virginia and North Carolina, and Alexander Spotswood was trying to amalgamate native people with other races to get rid of the Indians. Now, when you look at the Byrd papers, and you would read his diary on April the 7th, 1728, he actually visited our reservation in Jerusalem, Cortland, Virginia. And what's so interesting about that, he described how our people look. He said the young men came out and their faces were painted and they made all kinds of grotesque.
Oh, and you know, a great question from Foxy Moon. And thank you for tuning into this broadcast as well. I know on the last one I was mentioning that if you need any genealogical help to reach out to me, because I do assist people that come from the West Indies, the West Indies, the Caribbean islands, et cetera, et cetera. Foxy Moon asks, Mike, within your research, you find that it's easier to find ancestors within the states as opposed to the islands? No, actually, the paper trail genealogy databases that I use cover all of the Americas, the entire, continent and islands surrounding North America. So, whether we're talking Alaska, Canada, any of the islands, South America, Brazil, and anything in between, I can definitely help you map out your family tree and at least bare minimum trace it to like the early 1800s. As far as how much further past the 1800s we can get, really just depends on, which country, which homestead, how the, paper records were kept, etc. But yeah, as long as you're, have heritage from North America at all, then I can help you out. And, a lot of Black Americans, we do the genealogy research and we find that a lot of us don't have ancestors that came from Africa. But the clients that I do have that do have some African heritage, they tend to be from St. Barnabas or Caribbean island somewhere, which makes a lot of sense because 40% of the Africans that were trafficked during the transatlantic slave trade went to the Caribbean. The first largest population of African slaves went to Brazil. The second largest was Caribbean. So it makes a lot of sense for you guys to have a little bit of African heritage mixed in there. But yeah, I can definitely help you out either way.
Figures, and they danced for him to the sound of a gore drum stretched tight with an animal skin. Then he said the young women came out and they were tall and shapely and dressed in their finery. Their hair was braided and they had white and blue conch shells in their hair that hung like locks and around their neck. And then they had wrapped around their body a match coat, which was red and blue, which is a shawl that fitted loosely about their body, that their mahogany skin shone through. Then he went let me get this point. He went on to say that these dark angels would make exceptional wives for the English planters, and their dark skin would bleach out in 2 generations, unquote. That's a quote that he made.
So that was the whole goal, was to try to bleach out, as they say.
Yeah, but it kind of tells you that first Americans were a rich brown people. They were mahogany in color.
How many Cherahawk and Nottoway Indians are there today?
We have 282 in our tribe.
280
that can do a paper trail from a genealogical aspect back to an ethnohistoric Sherinock and Ottawa Indian surname. That's the only, if you read the Constitution and bylaws on our website, the only way you can join the tribe, you can't say, well, I'm Sherinock and Ottawa, I got the blood, I'm going to join the tribe. You have to show us a paper trail.
And this is exactly what I show you guys during these one-on-one genealogy consultations. There's some folks like Foxy Moon where they may be more so interested in just tracing their family heritage, getting their family tree mapped out, learning some stories, some notable achievements of their ancestors. But then there's some of us who are particularly in North America who seek to get tribal citizenship with whatever tribe our ancestors were affiliated with. So regardless of what your genealogy end goal is, you know, I'm still able to help you out either way, because this is a process that me and my family have actually legitimately gone through just as recently as 2021.
If you're looking to get genealogy consultation, I highly recommend Mike. You know, he was very thorough, prompt, very knowledgeable, even taught me some stuff about the background of Indian ancestry and heritage that I didn't know. The biggest piece of it is he taught me how to pull records and really dig into those records to make sure that I have things to match up to be able to take back for my citizenship. So I really appreciate everything he does, and I highly recommend Mike as your genealogist.
Tracy. Now, and Dr. Boja, I want to turn to you on this part, because if the records say, you know, the birth certificate says Negro, the marriage certificates, et cetera, how do you work past that to prove the
the government is very sympathetic today.
Hey, this is how deep paper genocide goes, right? My lineal ancestors are damn near Creek royalty. I mean, they said Thomas was a town king and the chief justice of the Supreme Court for my tribe and shit, right? So I damn near descend from tribal royalty, right? But me and my siblings and my parents and my grandparents, we were classified as Black or African American all our lives. Couple generations back, we Black Indian royalty in Oklahoma, right? Couple generations down the road, reclassified, victims of paper genocide. And until me and my family took it upon ourselves to do the research and apply for citizenship and get our status corrected and go from Black to American Indian, we didn't know. Nobody knows. Well, we all heard stories that we got Indian in the family, right? And we just so happen to have zero African culture or tradition or food or dance or anything, but they want us to believe we all come from Africa.
In light of what happened to the Native Americans in the 1920s in Virginia in particular. So the federal government and even the state, well, at least the state government is very, very sympathetic about that. But I think there's still a pushback as far as the federal government is concerned and extending recognition to them. And even as I've done research in the various county censuses over the years, I had a very frustrating time in coming across some people who identified as free Black in one instance and even white in other instances. Very seldom are they designated as Native Americans, but you see that and you're trying to figure out what's going on. And I know some families who are present day families, I won't mention the family, but because those families are descendants that I know, it probably was a Native American aspect to that confusion
to the family
in the early 19th century. Yes.
What you have state recognition?
Yes, we have state recognition,
and you're going for federal. Okay,
working on federal recognition.
And if you get federal recognition, what does that mean for the tribe?
Well, that provides some additional resources as far as grant dollars and funding for education, etc., and also for starting businesses. State recognition, the way it stands now, basically gives us.
Hey, this may rub some people the wrong way, but I gotta call a spade a spade. When you're a tribal citizen of a recognized tribe, you get repentance, rectification, and reparations by the U.S. government. Now, whether the reparations is all it's cracked up to be, whether the Indians is balling with casinos or living methed out on the reservation, you know, that depends on tribe, right? But at the end of the day, as crazy as this may sound, just a Black American hearing this for the first time, the average Black American has a faster, more sure way of getting reparations by getting their tribal citizenship. If we put in the effort to do our family tree, do our genealogy research, and if our ancestors were a part of tribes that are recognized, get tribal citizenship, then you got a pathway to reparations way faster than any reparations that the U.S. government is going to give Black Americans on a national or federal level. It's going to be the year 2072, and Black Americans are still going to be advocating for reparations. But if we get in touch with our Aboriginal roots, we could have been cashing the reparations checks. Come on. Again, I've never even visited my tribe's reservation. I've been to Oklahoma. I got family in Oklahoma. I ain't feel no need to go on the rest. My check's still cash, though. My check's still clear. So let's talk about it. What is a more surefire way for me from beginning to end to get my tribal citizenship, to get this sent to me, everything be on up and up? I think total it took me like 3-4 months. So what do you think is a faster path to reparations? Doing your genealogy, maybe it takes 3 to 4 months max. Maybe you get with Mike and I help you get that done in half the time. But going through Route A or going through Route B, which is advocating and lobbying the U.S. government and different jurisdictions to talk about reparations. And at best, all these motherfuckers have is reparations meetings. As much as Black Americans have been hitting the pavement and advocating for reparations, the best that they've given us is talks about maybe considering reparations. Meanwhile, if we get in touch with our Aboriginal roots, we got something called the Treaty of 1866. That's a reparations package just waiting for us.
Additional access to grants for schools that were originally founded for Native Americans. And I can say this too, also Hampton University. And Hampton University was the second school in the Commonwealth outside of William and Mary and the Brapperton in 1711 that amalgamated Native Americans. They had some 55 different tribes there from 1885 up until 1926. Matter of fact, those buildings and part of the land that Hampton University sits on was given free gratis by an anonymous donor out of Boston.
You know what's really interesting? We called Hampton University because we knew that they had the school, and their response and why they didn't want to come on the show was that they felt that they didn't have enough of the history to be able to speak about it.
Well, I would debate with them on that because there are a number of books that have been written on it. And actually, I have a list of all the tribes that attended Hampton University during that period.
No, he got the receipts, y'all. He got the receipts. And shout out to Indigenous Walk Sabe. They say, yo, Mike, you ain't lying. I got a Trinidadian in my lineage, but everyone else is from here. I come from the Anuwia on my dad's side and Seminole on my mama's side. Yeah. Hey, that is why I love promoting the term Native Black American, because Native Black American is all encompassing. Again, millions of African slaves were shipped to the Americas. They did mix and amalgamate with indigenous people, whether melanated or on the lighter end of the spectrum scale, right? But either way, there's Native Black Americans that just descend from Aboriginal melanated folks of the Americas that have zero African ancestry. And then there's some of us that have a mix of the two. So what? Get over it. But they want to convince us that every single person that has dark skin, and not even dark skin, just a little bit of color to them, can go out in the sun and not need sunblock, right? Those folks who don't need SPF 50 to go outside and play. We all come from Africa. No, that's not the case. That's not the case at all. This is why I start this out in my website. Black Indians exist. We are indigenous peoples of what is currently known as the Americas and the Caribbean, and some of us are also the descendants of indigenous peoples of Africa. It's important to note that there are Black natives who have no African heritage at all. They are simply the descendants of indigenous peoples of the Americas. This identity often includes freedmen, the free men and women who were once classified as slaves of the 5 civilized tribes: Cherokee, Chickasaw, Creek, Seminole, and Choctaw, and their descendants. Black natives and freedmen are the legacy of both our Black and Native ancestors. We are the personification of their joy, pain, and resistance and endurance, and it is because of their resistance and hope that we are still here today. The Black Native identity is not a monolith. It is as diverse as it is numerous. Our lived experiences, like our identities, cannot be lumped into a single category. Over the centuries, Black natives have been reclassified in America as early as 1682, as white settlers and colonial systems sought to categorize us, often erasing our native identities or forcing us into rigid racial classifications. Despite this, we have continued to honor and claim our diverse heritage. Because of this diversity, we refer to ourselves in a variety of ways, including Afro-Indigenous, Native Black American, Indigenous as Black, Indigenous and Black, Black and Native, or Foundational Black American. Many of us, by choosing to honor both our Black and Indigenous roots, are actively pushing back against America's tradition of defining people by strict racial categories. We resist the pressure to choose one identity over the other, especially when we may appear more aligned with one racial group than the other, or feel we are not enough of either. In doing so, we are reclaiming our identities on our own terms. Key word, on our own terms. Let's talk about it. So again, shout out to the Native Black Americans, whether you're in what is present day known as the United States of America, or whether you're in Canada, or whether you're in Central America, or whether you're in South America, or whether you're in the West Indies or a Caribbean island somewhere, you're still a Native Black American to me. But do your genealogy, do your research, just to be on the safe side. we have to make sure that our paperwork's on the up and up.
And
Go ahead.
The cemetery out there.
The cemetery out there
will
also
tell you
has
quite a bit.
information.
Yes,
exactly,
yes.
exactly.
Okay, I want to get to some of the regalia that you're wearing and
Okay.
so forth. I want to ask War Chief Howell, first of all, what exactly is a war chief? What do you do?
The war chief is like a security officer. You know, anything going on in the tribe wrong, I step in and handle it. If anyone if they can't do their job, I have to be able to step in and do anybody's job in the tribe.
Oh, okay.
In the absence of the chief, if he can't make it, I step in his absence and do his job.
Mm-hmm.
So my job is just like a police officer.
See, I didn't know that.
He's a negotiator also in case we have problems.
Is there a meaning to the feathers in your headwear?
The Chief Brown have done the
He's wearing a
research on the
Gustoa.
feathers. Okay.
In our Iroquois language, we say Gustoa. And War Chief, he has one feather. I have three
right,
long
I
feathers.
noticed that,
Okay,
yeah.
but we didn't wear the long flowing head feathers. Many of us in the 16th, 17th, 18th century, early 1800s rather, ran around bare chested and just breech cloth. Okay, men and women. So this is something that has been promulgated by way of television and Hollywood. But Western tribes out west, they wore the long
ones.
eagle staffs. Yes,
Okay.
I mean with the eagle feathers and the eagle bonnet. But we didn't wear that. We were.
Your people were hunters and fishermen.
Yes,
correct?
exactly. And farmers. We raised hogs. We trapped. We cured hides, and we hunted and we fished. And the ikiing, the women did all the work.
The women did the work.
We had a great society, didn't we?
You know, I'm gonna get you for that one. Now, I made the mistake of almost touching the staff. Talk to me about that.
Staff.
Yes, your staff.
Well, one of the things. This is not an eagle staff. This is my chief's hawk staff.
Okay.
The eagle staff is like our U.S. flag, and it's normally handled by the iniha, which is men in our Iroquois language. Also, the drum. Normally women don't drum, but some tribes have a women's group that drum. But normally the men do the drumming and the women they sing in the
women do the
background.
singing.
Right.
So
that's a part of our tradition and a part of our culture, and that's one of the things that we're trying to do in the tribe. We're trying to rekindle and bring back to life our traditions and our culture. That's one of the reasons why we recently acquired 100 acres of our former 41,000 acres of reservation land granted to us by the House of Burgess in 1705, and we're putting up what we call a Kalahari town, which is a Palisade interactive Native American village, a tribal education center, and a museum, of which we're going to be putting artifacts in, etc.
And this is in.
See what happens when you get recognition, get reparations, get rectification. This tribe, I'm not sure if they even have their federal recognition yet. At this point in time, when they filmed this, they were only state recognized. So this tribe that is only state recognized is still able to get some of their ancestors' land back. They're able to build cultural centers, museums, do their own shit, rock out with their culture. I mean, this is a much more sure bet for us to get reparations. And at bare minimum, it's a nice blueprint for us to witness and avoid some of the pitfalls and pick up some of the strengths, right? for as much of reparations as a lot of these tribes get, the average Native American reservation is impoverished. They all cracked out on meth and shit. So we can definitely learn from them how to not trick off the money, right? How to start up certain schools and grants and programs. But guys, this is something actually within our grasp.
In Southampton County,
In
where
Sou-
you
in
were
Southampton County.
originally
Right.
done. And you're also having a powwow.
Yes,
that's coming
we
up.
have a powwow July the 24th and the 25th. It's a celebration of the green corn harvest when the roasting years are ready. So come out and get a year of corn, etc. But this is our 9th annual powwow that we've done at the Southampton County Fairground in Cortland, Virginia. This is really the 15th powwow. We do powwows in Nottoway County because that's where we had first ethnohistoric contact with the colonial.
They don't want you to remember this. You not no slave, you indigenous. Fuck how they painted them Indians. You went to war with the French and the British men. Quite frankly, you was kings, Merovingians. They took the women and men, made them prisoners. Raised up the children to worship their images. Set up a lab to the genes and they mixed them. And this shit get way deeper than your pigment.